Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you about a free 3-act worksheet to help you structure your story. Whether you're a plotter or a pantser, a novelist, or short fiction writer, this 3-act worksheet will help you navigate your material and even begin each new story with a better plan. Download yours at nancypanuccio.com/act. Stop getting stuck in the middle of your draft. Go grab this free worksheet, nancypanuccio.com/act. If you're in the thick of a draft or starting a revision, ask yourself this: what's a moment of emotional testing early in my story? And what would it look like to retest my character later so that her response reveals who she's become? Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. Well, hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Writer Unleashed. Today, we're diving into one of the most essential and sometimes elusive elements of storytelling: how to show that your character has changed over the course of the novel or the memoir. Because here's the thing: your main character's transformation is what elevates your story from a series of events to something that truly resonates. It's what lingers with your reader long after they turn the last page. It's what makes a plot more than just a sequence of events. It makes your story meaningful to the reader. We read stories not just to see what happens, but to witness who your character becomes. So, how do we show that change instead of simply stating it or having someone else in the story point it out? That's what we're going to explore today. We're going to talk about why change matters in a story, what character change actually looks like, and I'll give you 4 powerful ways to show that evolution on the page. So first, why does character change matter? Well, a story at its core is a journey, not just from one location to another or through a string of events, but from one version of self to another. Your character begins the story in a certain mindset. They believe something about themselves, about the world, and about what they need in order to be okay. But the story is going to test those beliefs. It's going to confront your character with situations that reveal the limits of those beliefs. And by the end, if your story has done its job, your character will have shifted in some way, large or small, even if it's subtle, even if it's bittersweet, even if they don't get what they originally wanted. That shift is what makes your story feel like it all mattered. So, what does character change look like? Change doesn't always mean a total personality makeover. It might be a shift in behavior, a new understanding, a different choice in the heat of the moment. It might even be a shift in the reader's perception of who your character is. A story might show this angle, then that angle, and then another angle later. Sometimes it's not that your character becomes someone new, it's that they finally come home to who they've always been, underneath the survival strategies. Other times, the change is internal, but it affects everyone and everything around them. Their relationships evolve. The kinds of risks they're willing to take shift because they have no other choice. Their voice changes. And when we talk about a shift in character's voice, we're not just talking about how they speak out loud. We're talking about how they think, how they see, and how they interpret what's happening around them. For example, early in the story, the character's voice is defensive, sarcastic, or self-deprecating. But in the end, that edge softens. There's more vulnerability or self-trust or hope in their tone. Or maybe their internal narration is full of doubt at first, second-guessing every move, bracing for rejection, or mistrusting themselves. Later in the story, their thoughts become clearer, more grounded. They take up space in their own mind without apology. It's subtle, but it is a sign of growth. We feel that this character sees the world and themselves a little differently than they did before. And that shift in how they narrate their reality tells us they've changed. And here's the key. Your reader should feel that change. It should be hard-won. The change shouldn't come easy. The reader feels it not because the character says, wow, you've really changed, or because the character herself says how much she's changed. The reader feels it because the character's actions show it. So let me give you 4 ways to do just that. Here are 4 ways to show character change over the course of your novel, your story, your memoir. Number 1, mirrored moments. Mirrored moments. This is one of my favorite tools. You take a similar situation, either in theme, setting, or dynamic, and you echo it later in the story. But this time your character responds differently. For example, in Margaret Atwood's novel Cat's Eye, the first chapter shows the narrator, Elaine, as a young girl with her friends on the trolley. They're noticing the older ladies on the trolley, especially the eccentric ones, the ones who stand out. They wear scarlet outfits or purple ones, the dangly earrings and hats that look like stage props. They go on and she describes them a little more. And then she says, this is the kind we like best. They have a certain gaiety to them, a power of invention. They don't care what people think. They've escaped, though what it is they've escaped from isn't clear to me. We think that their bizarre costumes, their verbal tics are chosen, and that when the time comes, we also will be free to choose. That's what I'm going to be like, says Cordelia, only I'm going to have a yappy Pekingese and chase kids off my lawn. I'm going to have a pet iguana, I say, and wear nothing but charisse. It's a word I have recently learned. So at this point, she's only 13, but then in the last chapter, there's a mirror moment. At this point in the story, she's made peace with the past. It turns out that Cordelia was a tormentor of hers. And so the mirror moment happens in the final chapter where she's on a plane, but she's observing the older women once again. I have the window seat. In the 2 seats beside me are 2 old ladies, old women, each with a knitted cardigan, each with yellowy white hair and thick lensed glasses with a chain around the neck, each with a desiccated mouth, lipsticked bright red with bravado. They have their trays lowered and are drinking tea and playing snap, fumbling the slippery cards, laughing like cars on gravel when they cheat or make mistakes. From time to time, they get up, unbuckling themselves laboriously, and hobble to the back of the plane to smoke cigarettes and line up for the washroom. When they return, they make bathroom jokes, quips about wetting your pants and running out of toilet paper, eyeing me cunningly while they do so. I wonder how old they think they are underneath the disguise of their bodies, or how old they think I am. Perhaps to them, I look like their mother. They seem to me amazingly carefree. They have saved up for this trip, and they are damn well going to enjoy it, despite the arthritis of one, the swollen legs of the other. They're rambunctious. They're full of beans. They're tough as 13. They're innocent and dirty. They don't give a hoot. Responsibilities have fallen away from them, obligations, old hates, and grievances. Now, for a short while, they can play again like children, but this time without the pain. This is what I miss, Cordelia. Not something that's gone, but something that will never happen. Two old women giggling over their tea. So it's a mirror moment. We begin the novel with the girls on the trolley observing the old ladies, the ones who are eccentric, the ones they admire and hope to be someday. And we end with the old ladies on the plane with the older narrator commenting on them, observing them, and missing what she would never have with Cordelia. But she's in a much different emotional place. So it's a mirrored moment. So let's say early on, your protagonist avoids conflict. They go along with what others want. They want to please, or they suppress what they really feel. Later in the story, maybe that same kind of situation shows up again, but now they speak up, or they walk away, or they draw a line. In Cat's Eye, she's a much stronger person than she was in chapter 1. She's an adult now, but she's had to move through the memories of her friend Cordelia and how she emotionally isolated her and really abused her, was very cruel throughout her childhood. So it's the same kind of moment, but the response has evolved. And that contrast tells us everything. This is especially powerful in climaxes and endings when the stakes are high and your reader is unconsciously asking, has this person really changed? So, number 1, mirrored moments. Number 2, shifts in interiority. Character change doesn't always need big dramatic scenes. Sometimes it's in the internal commentary, the thoughts we get access to. Maybe early in the story, your character is harsh with themselves. They second guess, they carry shame, they expect rejection, or they're struggling with some internal problem. But as the story unfolds, we start to see a different tone, more self-awareness, maybe a little compassion, more confidence, more self-assuredness. Maybe they don't spiral the way they used to, or they notice something they would have missed before. So this shift in voice, what they notice, how they react, and how they narrate their experience can signal huge growth without needing any dialogue or action. And it's especially important in first person or close third person narration. In Cat's Eye, the character change is done almost entirely through interior shifts, observations, and insights. As her perceptions shift And as her sense of self transforms, it's done through a series of internal shifts. Okay, on to shift number 3, changed relationships. Another powerful way to show transformation is through the way your character relates to others. Are they more open, more truthful? Are they more combative? Do they let someone in or let someone go? Maybe they set a boundary they never would have dared to before, or maybe they finally say what they've been afraid to say. Sometimes what we can't say or do with others early in the story becomes possible later, not because the situation changed, but because the character did. So pay attention to the emotional dynamics of key relationships in your story. That's where so much of the transformation is reflected. Okay, last one, the uncharacteristic action. This is the moment where your character does something they wouldn't have believed possible at the start. It doesn't have to be a big movie moment either. It might be a tiny act, but it holds weight because it's new. Maybe your character is the fixer in the marriage, the one who always keeps the peace. And near the end, she finally lets something fall apart. Or maybe your character has always been guarded, and for the first time, they tell the truth without the armor. It's the moment where your character surprises even himself. And yet it feels inevitable because the story has earned it. Okay, so if you're in the thick of a draft or starting a revision, ask yourself this. What's a moment of emotional testing early in my story? And what would it look like to retest my character later so that her response reveals who she's become? You don't need to hit your reader over the head with the change. You just need to let it show in the contrast. That's what makes a character arc felt. It's what makes a character arc complete. So, number 1, mirrored moments. You take a similar situation, theme, setting, or character dynamic, and you echo it later in the story, but this time the character responds differently. Number 2, shifts in interiority. Sometimes it's the internal commentary, the thoughts we get access to, where we see the change. Number 3, changed relationships. You want to show the transformation through the way your character relates to other key characters in the story. And number 4, the uncharacteristic action. The moment where your character does something they wouldn't have believed possible at the start, but they had no other choice. So I hope this gave you some inspiration and tools to shape your character's transformation with more intention and more heart. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.